Okay, so um, now I wanted to talk about um, like what I guess if other people were in a class with me, whether it be a student or an instructor, um, kind of like what people I wish people would know about autism and ADHD, but mostly autism, and how to kind of like deal with it, or I guess like interact with a student um, who is autistic. Um, so um, I and I one thing I want to get into like first is that now some students with really any diagnosis and autism or anything else um, could have an overlapping intellectual disability, which makes it harder for them um, in various ways. But kind of outside of that, if you will, um, a lot of students with various kind of developmental disorders, including autism, it really doesn't like it doesn't make them not intelligent or less intelligent than the average population. Um, and like people who aren't disabled, there are some people who are really smart, and there are people with developmental disabilities who are really smart, and then, average. And then there are people who are considered to have low intellect. Um, and that applies for people with disabilities as well as it does for people without, well, I guess intellectual disability. Impairment is a disability, but aside from that, you know, the, people have different types of intelligence, um, and people are really good at some things and really bad at other things, and that's pretty much true for everyone. Um, in my opinion, I think that's especially true for autistic people. Um, they tend to be like really really good at something related to what they're interested in. Like I have a cube. I love to solve Rubik's cubes. I'm actually not that great at solving these, but they're pretty easy. So um, yeah, I can solve one of these fairly quickly, considering a lot of people can't solve them at all. So that's um, and so uh, hmm, yeah, I'm gonna get distracted solving this. Sorry, um, but okay. So now the thing that you have to remember um, about autism is just because it doesn't mean someone is not as smart or not as capable um, or anything else. It might mean they kind of interpret things differently or see things in ways that other people don't. Um, and I think details, especially, are something people on the spectrum pay a whole lot of attention to, um, and might even kind of, I guess, ruminate on details rather, whereas other students may not. Um, and that can be where it might be helpful to kind of, I guess, guide all students, but especially a student with autism, um, and kind of give them an idea of what you're looking for and what you want out of something, because they might get lost in details otherwise, and kind of, I guess, miss the overall picture. Um, no, not always, but that's something to take into consideration that can probably help all students. Um, Another thing is a clear outline. I actually have an instructor this semester who's already sent us an email. Classes start Monday, so she already sent us an email, and it's she like told us everything that she gave us like everything we're going to need, and then everything that we're going to be doing in a different section, and for each of those like sections she had bullet points of lists, like what you're going to need to do by this day and this day of the week and so on and so forth. um, and I really appreciate like short and sweet little bullet points. Like, this is what you need. This is, you can go read the syllabus 50 times over or whatever, but here it is, short and simple. And then she's also said that she's going to work on putting like audio outlines as well, every Friday for the upcoming week, and kind of like informing us ahead of time what we're going to do. And I just really appreciate it. It's actually two professors teaching it, this class, so I really appreciate the work that both of these professors already have and said they will continue to um, go in and put in all this effort, because it really makes the class a lot easier for me to understand personally, but it's something that I really believe helps all students, um, and helps everyone kind of, I guess it like calms people down in a sense, because it makes things very clear, and you're not sitting there guessing and kind of like running around through 50 different files being like, oh my god, where's this one thing of information I need? Like, what you need is there. And yeah, so clear outlines. I really appreciate bullet points. When I see a chunk of paragraph, my brain is like, do I really have to read this? Please stop. Um, so the one thing I've also found helpful, that professors have done in the past, is to remind us about due dates. Um, and a lot of professors tend to do that anyway, in my experience. Um, but especially emails, like, it's one thing to say it verbally in class, but I really love emails about stuff, um, because it's like, it's something that I like. I get notified on my computer that one showed up. It's written so I can go back and look at it, and yeah, I just email, reminders are great. And one thing I wanted to address, which I kind of already touched on, was like alternative access to content. So one of my classes this semester, the professor's teaching it. They're giving us like a outline, a weekly outline that's you can read online. But they're also going to give us like audio. Um, Kind of clips of what to expect, and we can either listen to it or we can read it. And again, that's, a lot of these things are something that I think especially help students with various disabilities, but as a whole I think they really help all students, and kind of give students like, it makes it easier for them to kind of, everyone learns a little bit differently, um, even if they don't have a disability. So it just kind of gives them more options to, to kind of access the content in a way that might maybe even be enjoyable. I don't know if enjoyable is the right word, but and so I think I might have touched on this, but not as quite as much as I wanted to, but like the intelligence, going back to that, um, you know, telling people what you want is, a good thing, and kind of guiding them. Um, but at the same time, and my major is in English, is my primary major, and then my secondary major is in the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies department. And um, basically, the reason I'm saying this is because I do a lot of writing. That's pretty much all I do for various assignments. It's a lot of discussions in class or online now because of COVID, but also there's just a lot of writing in general. And what I find is that sometimes I think I've understood something and exactly what a professor wanted, but I didn't. And I turned in something that I worked very hard on. Um, and depending on the professor, they will, they might reward you for the effort, even if you didn't exactly understand what they were asking for. Um, because I think some people realize that, somebody could be saying one thing and someone and the person hearing it is interpreting something else. And when they give you the result, it's not that they didn't listen, it's not that they didn't put in the effort, which, could be true, but isn't always. Sometimes they tried, they were giving you what you asked for, but they just, for whatever reason, didn't realize exactly what you were meaning, and so they gave you something that you really didn't want. Um, and I'm not saying you should give every student like an A for everything they do. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I think people should be more kind of, I guess, understanding. Sometimes, everything's about context, but realize when someone tried and put in effort and thought they knew what they were doing, um, and realize when someone gave you something that might just be kind of a difference in their interpretation of what you were saying than what you thought you had clearly and concretely said you wanted. Um, so, it maybe sometimes be open to giving students second chances if they didn't give you what you wanted, and kind of explain where they went wrong in terms of what you were really meaning and what they gave you, and kind of give them that constructive feedback. Um, and yeah, uh, maybe give them a second chance. Maybe don't count off as much for like doing something wrong. I mean, if it's a math question where they like said 2 plus 2 equals 5, okay, that's wrong. But in something like a writing assignment or something like that, I mean, or an essay. A lot of classes, even not English, have essays. So just kind of be understanding of how people might see things differently than what you thought you explained, and kind of just I think that should kind of be more of a kind of I guess like a learning experience for the person saying what they want, because then you kind of learn that people have a lot of different understandings of things, and the way you kind of say things and interpret the world is not the same as someone else. Um, so there can be a lot of miscommunication, even if people are saying the same thing, they might not even realize it. Sometimes they aren't saying the same thing, but they think they are. Um, so, just kind of language is a funny thing, communication is a funny thing, um, and it's open to misinterpretation. Always, all of it. Um, Maybe not always, but most of the time. Um, so just if someone gives you something that you think you clearly did not ask for, you don't have to think that they're like not intelligent or not capable. Maybe they just misinterpreted what you were saying. Um, so yeah, I guess kind of take that into consideration. Um, so the last kind of thing I wanted to touch on. This video turned out to be pretty long, but especially with autism, like one of the things associated with autism are these things called meltdowns, um, and around certain people and certain situations, I can be really good at like trying to control myself until I can get home, and then I have a total breakdown. Um, but sometimes you can't always totally keep yourself calm, and this might be related to other stress factors in life. This might be related to stress with like school, or people, some kind of argument or whatever. Um, Sometimes a student, especially one who has some kind of disability, might be more prone to outbursts, and not be able to kind of, I guess, I don't want to say not control themselves as easily, but their kind of threshold of tolerance might be lower. Um, well, even lower than a student who doesn't have a disability. Because like sometimes different disabilities can kind of take just like a mental toll because they're kind of stressful to deal with. Um, so just a student may have an outburst, and it might have nothing to really do with you, even if you think it's directed at you. Um, just so, yeah. I guess if there's an outburst, the kind of best way to deal with it is kind of maybe talk to the student and say, or maybe talk to an advisor at the disability center and maybe tell them what happened and say, okay, what can we do in the future to help a situation like that? Or maybe just ask the student or disability advisor, like what's going on? Why can someone explain to me why that outburst or that student said or did or whatever, why that happened. I think sometimes like I know I've like just been really stressed out before, and I probably haven't responded the best, um, which is kind of sucky. It's actually really sucky to think about because I know that's happened around some of my favorite professors ever, and even favorite teachers, and I just like sometimes I think about those kind of situations, and I'm just like, oh my god, why did I do that? Like, why? It's really awful. I'm sure it wasn't great to experience, but it's sometimes like I feel like kind of a bad person for doing those sorts of things. But at the same time, if I'm being honest, I don't think I had necessarily the mental ability or maybe capacity at that time, or something like that, to kind of react in any other way. Um, and like I said, it might have nothing to do with the person who's in the kind of vicinity or the receiving end or anything of what's going on. I mean, sometimes it is. I've had professors that I probably could have responded better to, that I genuinely did not like. I wouldn't go so far as to say I hated them, but I would never take their class again. So, you know, just kind of, I think, just be, I guess, one thing I wish different people would know is that, students have a lot of things going on, and sometimes they don't mean to kind of, I guess, go off on you or in certain situations, but then they do. Um, and I guess just remember that, like, try not to take it personally, I guess. I know that can be hard, and, sometimes what students, and anyone really, what people can do is hurtful, especially if you didn't deserve it. Um, but I guess, don't necessarily, I'm not saying you should, like, excuse or forget about it or anything else, but um, just kind of remember that it wasn't meant as an attack towards you. Sometimes it was, but just if you can figure out what was going on and what happened and what caused it, um, that's the best route in my opinion. And kind of trying to figure out what can be done, if anything, in the future. And whether sometimes you can just ask, even, did that have anything to do with me? Did I do something wrong? Because I feel like a lot of times when students, and this is like any age or anyone really, sometimes when people get upset at someone, people tend to take it personally and feel like that's like something negative about them. But it's really not. I mean, of course, sometimes it is. But sometimes it isn't. And, that just because a student has an outburst doesn't mean they don't think you're the best instructor ever or something like that. Or one of their favorite. Sometimes, if a person is, I guess, if, favors you or something, they might feel more comfortable around you, which could potentially make them more likely to have an outburst around you than maybe someone that actually caused the issue. Which I don't mean to say like I'm excusing this or you should feel good when someone treats you like crap. Nah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, sometimes the situation isn't always what it seems. And try to think about it or find out more information about what happened before you see it as like a negative thing about you. Um, that took a long time to explain. But I think I'm done with this video. Um, so I guess those are the main things that I have to say about being around a student, but I guess a lot of this applies to really any student or just people in general, but especially I think with like autism and or ADHD, I think it's really helpful to take all these things into consideration. Um, and it'll probably help, especially like a classroom setting, go more smoothly. Um, so yeah.